All right, so I am streaming here on a Saturday morning. I got my coffee here, my decaf coffee. I have to be careful with drinking too much caffeine because I've pretty much drank too much caffeine throughout my life, and I'm really sensitive to it. So let's bring up the chat window just to see if we have anybody who's popping in here. Okay, so what we're doing is so where do I begin with this? All right, so we're looking at an Amazon chart and we're looking at XRP. Okay, so I love the digital asset XRP. I love the digital asset space because it just makes sense to me. And let me just say, let's go all the way back to when I was out there on the road as a truck driver. I was in Atlanta and I came across this guy, and it was right around it was just after the 2017 bull run for Bitcoin. And I'd heard of Bitcoin, but I just couldn't wrap my mind around like what it was. I was like, what the heck is Bitcoin? And it's like people were like, oh, it's like a virtual currency, digital currency. And I was just like, okay, so well, how is it a currency? So it just really baffled me. But anyway, I was at the terminal for the company that I worked for when I was driving truck. And I ran across this guy who was just, beside himself because, Bitcoin was moving up, and apparently, I guess he owned like 5 of them. And he's like, I don't think I'm going to have to drive truck anymore. I think I'm going to be able to retire. And he's like, I own Bitcoin. I was like, you own Bitcoin? I was like, really? And so he started telling me like how he actually got them and stuff. And he had like this little mining operation where he had mined them. And what he was doing, he was actually mining an altcoin called Burst Coin at the time. And so he's mining Bitcoin, and he said that he was able to take the Burst Coin and then exchange it for Bitcoin. And I was just like, what? I need to look more into this and try to figure out like what is this, this cryptocurrency stuff. So this was right after the, that first bull run where Bitcoin shot up to 20,000. And so I was like, well, shoot, man, maybe I should just take a look at this and try to figure out. So in doing that, so we ended up setting it up ourselves. We were like trying to mine some Bitcoin, mining some Burst. And we actually did get quite a bit of Burst coin, followed some direction from this individual on how to set up like these, we had several hard drives. We had this computer that was running, and we were actually mining some Bitcoin. And I think when everything was said and done, we ended up with like a fraction of Bitcoin. And so that was kind of like my start with being exposed to cryptocurrencies. And this was, back in early 2018. And so as I started doing that, after doing that, I started to really read about like, okay, so what is it about Bitcoin, and why are people drawn to this? And then I started realizing how much of a correlation, or at least it was like seeing something I had already seen before back in the early days of the internet. Because when I found the internet, let me just go back. So in 2000, right around late 1999 to 2000, I really started, trying to figure out like, what's this internet thing all about? And and if there's a way that I could create a business off of the internet, because that's the first thing that came to mind. Because back then, eBay was just starting to get its start, and I felt that, well, maybe I should create a website. And so I had to learn how to do all of this stuff because I didn't know anything about, all I knew was like barely what a hard drive was and like what a megabyte was. So let me just kind of summarize this story, just like sum it all up. So by 2004, so it took about 4 years, I became full-time. I was a full-time entrepreneur on the internet, and I was actually selling information products and creating ebooks and videos. Now this is like way before, I still remember seeing some of these first videos online that an individual by the name of David Vollier, who owns Info Product Lab, and he's had Info Product Lab for way before there was even YouTube. And so anyway, he was creating videos online using the early versions of Camtasia Studio. And I was just blown away. I was like, holy smokes, this is the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. It's like I'm actually watching TV on the internet, but it was a pre-recorded video. I was like, man, I've got to get into this. And so, but again, he was all about creating information products and just trying to create content. And that was, kind of my early start with the internet. And so I said, so again, by 2004, I became a full-time entrepreneur. I was making really, really good money, over six figures. I was making, I remember that year from August to the end of the year of that year. So starting in 2005, I had made more money on the internet, creating a product and a service, in just the last 6 months. And so anyway, I knew that the internet was here to stay. And as a result of that, 2004, I didn't actually have to work for anybody till about 2016, when I had to go into trucking, because I had created several internet businesses, a few internet businesses. One in particular in 2006 that I created was called Need an Article. It was a content writing service. It was the first of its kind, and we did really, really well. And so by 2016, I had cycled as an entrepreneur. I had failed. I pretty much had to go back into the workforce. So I didn't have to work for anybody. So that's kind of my history. But anyway, I kind of got off the track here. Sorry to do that. If there's anybody in here watching, let me actually check and see if there's anybody. Oh, okay, nobody's in here. Good. All right. So um, just taking a drink of my coffee. So the reason why I share that story about the internet, my early start with the internet, was this individual, David Valier, said something that I remembered back then. And he had said this. He goes, when I found the internet, he goes, look, and I was on his newsletter. I was reading his newsletters and getting his emails. He had said, when I found the internet in its early stages, I think he found it in 1995. He had said, he said, here is a legal way to print money. He knew that the internet was going to explode and take off. And so if we come full circle all the way to 2018, it was like seeing it all over again. Because if you really stop and think about this and just really try to simplify what Bitcoin is and what digital assets are, it is kind of the second phase of the internet. It really is. And it's probably going to be the biggest, because the internet is about data, right? The internet was the technologies of IP and SMTP, which is the mail transfer protocol, and then you have the Internet Protocol, which is the foundation. These various protocols revolutionized industry and gave rise to giants like Amazon. And so here we are. It's 2022. We are in the early stages of this phenomena, digital assets, which is the second stage of the internet. And it's really quite interesting to see how the early stages of Amazon in the chart. So I've got a monthly chart of Amazon pulled up here. I've got a monthly chart of XRP. How similar it actually is, right? Because, look, it started back, if we go here, follow my mouse here on the left screen. From 1998, the price rallied up with Amazon, and then it retraced over 90%. And I remember somebody telling me that somebody somewhere, I think it was a Twitter post, or I read somewhere, that during this time, the news and the climate of society there was tons of bad news. Everybody was like, so specifically somebody had said, oh, on the Today Show, you can actually look up archived videos on YouTube where they were reporting that when this was taking place, that not to buy Amazon because it was just too volatile. Well, so we already know the history of that. So you could see it had this big massive move up, this 90% correction, right, from off of this base here. And then as it began to correct up, so one thing that I like to do in charts is I just like to find the 50% point. Okay, and if we do that, so we'll just find the 50% point here. And we can see that is, so I actually have a particular template for that. Let's see, there we go, shaded 50%. All right, so let's make it a different color here. So, let's see. There we go. All right, so 50% is right there. All right, so you can see that once Amazon came up to 50%, it began a retrace, right? Moved into this, this sort of downwards channel, which is, in technical analysis, this would be referred to as somewhat of a flag, a bit of a bullish pattern, of course. And if we look at XRP, come into XRP, you can see that if we go between this high and its existing low here, sorry. I'm on my laptop, so it's a little bit small. I need to probably get rid of this right here, this indicator here. All right, so if we go between this low and this, the high where it began its correction, you see it came up to 50% right there and sold off, and then created what appears to be a pennant. Okay, and interestingly enough, too, if we look at this here, it does kind of look like a pennant where price, it's on the monthly chart, where the price has actually come up and closed up out of this already. And I digress too much away from, but you can see there's an area of previous support here where it's really just kind of contending with this area. So what we of course want to see is, the price come up and break above that, and then could use that as support and then potentially go higher. But there's a lot of information out there. I mean, there's tons of people on YouTube right now that are just creating videos left and right about, oh, XRP is going to moon and this and that. And so, but again, isn't it interesting to note how similar it really is? Now, it created kind of a downwards, flagging channel, whereas XRP created a pennant. Okay, and so this is again a monthly chart, and then price is beginning to move up out of this area. And so to stay on track with this here, let's see, is there anybody in here? Nope, nobody's in here, so that's good. That's good. Because I'm live streaming, and I'm just completely being spontaneous. I'm not. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to talk about, but at the same time, I'm a little low on calories because I'm actually 1 week out from a physique competition, so my brain is not functioning to the I'm running on half a tank most of the time. So anyway, I think this is pretty amazing. So how Amazon did what it did, and then of course XRP did what it did, and it started to correct, and so now it's starting to move up. Now notice this too. So like right here back in July, so this base right here, it was right around August that it put in its final low, and you can see here that that's the case also for XRP. So isn't that interesting? Right. So with XRP, so why XRP? You may ask. Okay, so XRP is actually, I would say, it's probably the greatest of all digital assets, because if you look up Ripple, the company Ripple, and you look up what XRP can do, it is so much faster and it's so much more energy efficient than Bitcoin. And so Ripple is a company who, and I'm going to just paraphrase this, ask the question, can we create, can we use this blockchain technology and create a solution to handle, say, what's one of the biggest, things one of the things they went after, cross-border payments. Okay, so they said, can we, and what can we use for a case study? And the case study was the internet, right? Can we use the model of the internet? And I do have some stuff on my iPad. I could probably just pull it up here. But I was watching this lecture on XRP. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It's in my images here. Just a moment. I should have probably had all of this already pulled out. And right, so yeah, here we are. Yes. So there was this lecture where they were explaining I wish I could pull this up on my laptop. They were explaining the internet architecture, the application, the transport, the inter-network, the network, which application would be like, like HTTP, SMTP, the protocols, right? And then the transport would be like TCP, UDP, and then the inter-network would be IP. And then, of course, network would be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Ethernet. And so what they did with the interledger architecture, which is based on, it's an hourglass architecture. They basically, so application in this particular instance would be SP or SP, so, and then HTTP, ILP, and then pay torrent. And then the transport would be IPR, PS key, and stream, and then the center part or the foundation of the hourglass would be interledger, which would be the ILP. And then, of course, the ledger would be the blockchains, the banks, and mobile money, things like that. So this was a lecture that I was listening to that I was like, whoa, so they are essentially creating a sort of Internet 2.0, if you will. And that's what Ripple did. Ripple came in and created the interledger protocol, which is ILP. Okay, so um, and it uses an entirely different algorithm from what I've learned than what Bitcoin uses. So Bitcoin's kind of like the early, like Napster of digital assets. That's what Brad Garlinghouse. That's how he put it. He says Bitcoin is the first, right? It was certainly revolutionary technology. Everybody knew that, but it wasn't done correctly, from the beginning. And so that's why he refers to Bitcoin as the Napster of digital assets. And then he says, XRP is the solution, right, to Bitcoin because of what it can do. And so it basically it was designed to be a bridging currency. So you'll hear this terminology of tokenization, where everything, all assets, whereas if you can kind of think of the internet, the early internet was like the digitization of all data, right, which gave rise to Wikipedia and just vast sources of information. So data, right? So that's the first internet. So the second stage of the internet, which will be laid on top, which is essentially laid on top of the existing internet, Internet 2.0, will be the internet of money or value. And that's basically sums it up in a nutshell, right? And so what XRP can do is XRP has the ability to essentially create on-demand liquidity. So that the technology is a you'll hear if you start researching this and learning about XRP and Ripple, that there's this concept of this technology of on-demand liquidity, which is a way of sourcing liquidity that does not exist today. And if you stop and think about it, liquidity is really what drives markets, right? It's like prices have to move up to an area of liquidity, right? And if there's no liquidity, then it generally creates like a void in the marketplace. And so that's like this bar here, moves up, and the area so it just basically creates this gap. So price is able to come back to the area of where the liquidity was at and, collect more liquidity on the way down. Right. So the way I understand liquidity is basically, something as simple as the Robert Kiyosaki analogy is that if you have an asset, it's either a hard asset or a liquid asset. So the perfect example of a liquid asset is just money, right? So if you have money in the bank, it's like that's an easy accessible, very liquid, right? So if you have $10,000 in the bank, you're $10,000 liquid. But if you have $10,000 in your real estate, your home, it's not very liquid. It's a hard asset, right? So it's an analogy for like if you were to take liquid and put it into a container and then freeze it, right? Then it becomes a hard asset. So you got to go through a process to get it liquid again, right? So XRP and and digital assets are about making, namely XRP and Ripple, and of course there are various other coins out there or technologies. I know there's XML, which is stellar. And then there's even Algorand, which is another one, but that seems to be more in the area of smart contracts. But it's about liquidity, and it's about creating on-demand liquidity where everything can essentially be tokenized, much the same way whereas the internet was about quote unquote or quote tokenizing data or digitizing data. But in this case, tokenizing, making it so that way money can actually flow freely with little friction across the globe, much the same way that data flows. So that is kind of the big picture. And so again, looking at XRP, I'm going to go into the chat window, see if there's anybody in here. It doesn't look like there's anybody in here, and that's perfectly fine. So this was actually a test. I was actually testing this. And let me just jump on YouTube and see if I can actually see if there's anybody actually, or if it's even Oh, there's 2 people watching. Okay, so somebody's actually in here, but nobody's actually chatted just yet. So, so anyway, so I've been looking at XRP charts. So if we go here, I'll just show you this. This is an XRP chart. I've studied this extensively over the last few years, and so this is I've created videos on this, but right now I don't have them public. I should probably make them public because I've changed my YouTube channel over the last 6 to 7 months. Um, but anyway, that is so we can see that Amazon, if we just look, Amazon took off and just pretty much that was it. I mean, from this area here, the price never came back. Once it came up and challenged its all-time high, right, closed above 50%. So clearly 50% of, from this high to this low, which was in this move here, it finally had a big correction, and then it, came back and essentially retested this area, and then that was it, right? So, so maybe that's what, so there are people that are calling for like a $6 XRP. I mean, and the other thing about XRP too, it seems that it doesn't take as long to, to move, to move up, right? So it seems that Amazon took much longer, and that seems to make sense because it seems like everything moves quicker these days because information is moving faster. Um, so who knows? But it's very likely that we might see something like this where we come up to the all-time high, and then we have a big correction, right? I know that there's one such YouTuber out there. He goes by the name of Coins Kid, and he does just basic technical analysis. Well, I mean, it's advanced technical analysis, but he does a good job. And he just says, hey, look, it's a game of support and resistance. And so he's a Fibonacci analyst as well as Elliott Wave. So he's calling for, somewhere around 60 cents where we could potentially see price correct and then come back and retest. So 60 something cents, which is, roughly right about here. So it's right around this area where there was previous support. So who knows, maybe it breaks up above this area, comes back and retests this, and then potentially goes higher. But again, I just thought it was interesting to notice how very similar. There was a move up on Amazon, big, massive sell-off, over 90% of its original move up. And then it began to correct and then started to create the necessary structures to go higher. So maybe that's what we're seeing with XRP, but I've been actually accumulating XRP since 2018, and I'm not letting it go because if you look up XRP, so there's a Twitter post, by the way, that I have here. So if we go over to Twitter, this is really cool. So I actually retweeted this here the other day. Let's see if I can get to this here. All right. Where is this at here? Okay, this guy right here, this video right here.
In 2013, the Federal Reserve began looking for faster payments options. 2 years later, an action plan was born.
All right, so let's rewind that. So this is just a 2-minute video.
Why do I hold XRP? Because Ripple's the chosen one to lead the new global digital payment system, and they use XRP. In 2013, the Federal Reserve began looking for faster payments options. 2 years later, an action plan was born and a federal payments task force was created. It included one company focused on crypto, Ripple. In 2014, the World Bank and Better Than Cash Alliance, which includes the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, and the governments of 32 countries, put out a report called The Opportunities of Digitizing Payments. 1 year later, the Better Than Cash Alliance featured one crypto company on their website, Ripple. Today, Better Than Cash Alliance and all other UN initiatives are focused on a single agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. You could see the SDGs logo on Bill Gates' lapel, world-leading companies, the Better Than Cash Alliance website, and on the UN's official exchange, Exchange. What crypto is Exchange officially utilizing for their carbon credit solution? XRP. The world will move to a new international standard for exchanging electronic messages between financial institutions.
So anyway, you get the point. So you'll notice that he's actually he's getting more and more rapid as he gets toward the end. And it's a very eye-opening video. So with that said, I don't want to bore you, but I am anticipating a higher price action for XRP, and I think XRP is the Neo of digital assets. I'm not an XRP maximalist by any means. Some people would say, "Oh, well, because you believe that, you are." It's like I'm not like some of these Bitcoin people who believe that it's just all about Bitcoin and that the world is going to be replaced with Bitcoin, or the entire financial system is going to be revamped and it's all going to be Bitcoin. There are people who actually believe that, so they call them Bitcoin maxis. I just say, hey, where's the value? Because it's always about the value, and that was my experience in the early stages of the internet. Is the people that were able to maintain longevity were those who were able to have a good sales and marketing approach. But you could have kind of a halfway decent sales and marketing approach, but if you had a good product, that worked so much more in your favor. So that was my experience, right? So is it's always going to come down to value, like where's the value? And so XRP and Ripple is about making it so that way value and assets can actually move freely and frictionless, across the globe. And so that's why I believe that that XRP is probably one of the best digital assets that you can invest in. Certainly not financial advice because I'm not a financial advisor, but this is just my own personal opinion. So I do hold some others. I actually hold a little bit of XML, which is it's been referred to as a sister coin to XRP. I do hold some Cardano. I hold some Algorand. I hold a little bit of Ethereum, and I think I have just a little bit of Bitcoin left from like our original mining setup that we were doing back in 2018. My sons have actually taken a liking to this thing called HBAR, which is Hedera Hash Graph, and they have accumulated quite a bit of that. So, what other ones? I mean, I've got some of the free ones that you have in Coinbase, which if you watch videos, they'll give you free ones. I think it's one's called Tesos or EOS, and but yeah, digital assets, the technology is revolutionary technology. It's like the internet all over again. And again, if I had to really, and when I talk with people about this in person, and for those that can't really wrap their mind around Bitcoin or the concept of digital assets, I just say, look, you already understand it. And they're like, what do you mean I understand it? It's like, well, do you have an email address? And they're like, well, yeah, sure. Who doesn't? Right. So I said, precisely, that's my point. The technology, the early stages of the technology, if you go back, let's like say 1995, just to talk to people about the idea of email, people would really have a hard time wrapping their mind around that, right? But come into the future, and everyone and their dog, literally, people are giving email addresses to their animals, to their pets, right? So everyone and their dog literally has an email address. And what is the technology behind email? And they're like, oh, okay, I get it, right? So, but they don't really know what the technology. It's called SMTP, which stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So they're like, okay, so they're following the logic, and I say, okay, now think, what does email do? And they're like, oh, it digitizes. You can send a digitized message to people in real time. And it's like, yeah, and then it morphed into and became more streamlined, and now you can actually send just text messages, using text. It's the same thing. It's just a digitization of data, right? It says now think of money moving that way, and this is where blockchain comes in, and this is where cryptocurrencies come in. And they're just like, oh, I get, oh, okay, I see. And so anyway, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. And they just kind of get it. And they just like, whoa, okay, I need to know more about this XRP thing, right? And so they start doing their research, and they come back, and had a few people who began to accumulate XRP when it was down in this consolidation right here, and was able to realize and actually close out in profit. One such individual, who was a former fellow truck driver, was actually able to close out in profit and pay off most of his truck payment on his truck. So that was pretty awesome to actually be a part of that, because he thanked me immensely and said, "Oh man, it's like if I hadn't met you and this and that, says I probably So I was just like, what a great story. And I think that it's going to be even better, right? And the fact that there's a ton of bad news, and there's tons of people that there's just tons of fear in the markets right now, and we always have to keep it in mind that anything can happen. This whole thing could just crash and just come down and wipe out these lows. But the value that Ripple's creating and what they're doing, and the partnerships that they've already developed, they're laying the rails. They're creating this new internet of value, and they're going to be a big part of it. So yeah, if it does come down to wipe out all of these, it'll just be another buying opportunity for me. But I am not selling or getting rid of my XRP. They're going to have to come and pry it out of my cold dead hands, right? Or pass some kind of law, I guess, where they told people to turn their gold in back, decades ago. So that's it for this. I just wanted to just jump in here and just do a spontaneous video. I'm out of coffee. I got to get some more.